Okay, we're all set up and we're ready to go. Hello, Al. How you doing?
Hello,
Hi, good to see you.
good to see you.
Okay, we're going to do a quick roll call of the board. So let's start with that. Hans Gruberg. Hans, are you present?
He has his sound turned off, Doug.
There we go.
Hans, unmute yourself, Hans. Hans?
Yeah.
Duncan Cameron, are you present?
Yes, President Doug. Duncan
Okay.
Cameron here.
You hear me
Good.
now?
And there's Hans. Hans is present. Maxine Lewis.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. And Joe Basili.
Present.
Good. Doug Stewart, I'm here. So we're all present and we have a quorum. So we are good to go. We can start this meeting. Next, or first up on our agenda is just a quick review of the, minutes of the prior meeting, so we can get approval of that. Do I have a motion to approve, or do we want to read these things?
So moved.
Second,
Motion to- Okay, and seconded. All in favor?
Move to
Aye.
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 reading.
Okay,
Dispose of the reading.
that's correct. We're dispensing with read.
Yeah, dispense the reading. That's the motion.
That's the motion. And the motion was seconded and it was passed.
Perfect.
Okay, on the Zoom screen, I'm trying to pull it up. We did that. Opening comments by me. Well, here we go, guys. Now I get a chance to kind of tell you all the wonderful things that the Sculpture Property Owners Association is all about. We've had a good year. We've been able to collaborate in a very different kind of an environment. This pandemic has kept us apart. We've not had a face-to-face meeting in well over a year. And I guess that right now we're doing fairly well as an association. We're getting a good visibility among those people that are in the city and the county government. Most of this is covered in a letter I'll be sending around later. And it basically will give you the more complete report of our activities. Recently, we've invited members who were not vaccine inoculated to give their names so we can put them on the fire department list. We've gotten approximately 17 names on that list, and I got 3 more today. Anybody that has not been on that vaccinated would like to be added to the list, we can start your vaccinations this coming Saturday. Friday, rather, this coming Friday. So that's where we are on that.
And that's a really big deal. So if you need a vaccine, please reach out to Doug, because we can get you on the list, providing you're a Florida resident and over 40.
You
Years
don't
old.
have to be a Florida resident. You can be a snowbird as long as you can show that you have a Florida address.
Correct.
Florida resident, right? Exactly. Okay, we have Ray Christman coming on, and we have other people on the board. We have one person on the board who is not here. He will be elected to the board this afternoon, but he could not attend the meeting. His name is Terry Copeland. Terry is an ex-IBM executive, has been down here for about 9 years, lives down at
Markham.
yeah, thank you. And he's right now he's unavailable today, but he will be an active participant on the board, and he'll be up for election later. Okay. Do we want to do self-introductions of, yes, let's do self-introductions of the people who are here. Start with Carl Barton. What building are you with?
Villa Riviera. Get closer to the mic.
Yeah, we can't hear him, Doug.
La Villa Riviera.
Ah, okay. Thank you, Carl. And next, or whoever, just I can't, I'm having difficulty reading the names. Is it Madison? No, that's not it.
BMS
Sanderson, Bruce.
Sanderson.
It's Bruce Sanderson.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's Bruce. Okay, it's Bruce Sanderson from Gulfview Beach Club.
Okay, thank you very much.
Al Hilditch, hello, Al.
Hello. Hi, Hans.
Just introduce
Hilditch.
yourself and indicate which building you live in Naples, please.
Al Hilditch Park Place Club.
Raymond? Raymond?
Ray Christman, Naples City Council.
Okay. Maxine, Albert Delgado.
Albert Delgado, Indies West Association.
Okay, super. Bob Anthony.
Bob Anthony with the Whitehall condominiums.
Excellent. George.
George Van Setter, also at the Whitehall.
Excellent. Jeff Miller.
Yeah, Jeff Miller, president of the Homeowners Association at Naples Casamore.
Okay.
You may have me unmute.
Renee Lewin.
Renee Lewin with Fonseer.
Here. Good for you. Okay. And Judy. Judy. She's muted. Judy Sawitsky.
Yeah, it's not Judy, it's Sam Rockwell. It happens to be her place. I'm with the Ambassador Club, condominium club.
Ambassador Club. Okay, great. All right, well, let's go ahead. We'll pick up anybody that hasn't been introduced later. Ray, we're going to turn this over to you, and I'm looking for Joe.
Okay, great. So Ray, just a quick introduction to Ray Christman. For those of you that do not know Ray Christman was elected to the Naples City Council in a special election that was held on April 3rd, 2019. So he's relatively new to the City Council. Prior to his election, Ray was very active in local civic and community affairs, including serving as the city's community redevelopment agency advisory board. Many of you may have come across Ray's name as it relates to his involvement as executive director of the ethics for Naples. And so there was quite a bit of activity there. And we're very glad that Ray got involved with that activity regarding ethics and really starting to instill that within the new city council. Ray now chairs the city community redevelopment agency, CRA. He heads up an environment advisory committee that was created at the request of Mayor Heitman. His priorities for Naples, and you'll hear about them in just a second, are improving the environmental quality of the city and region, as well as achieving balanced growth and development. And I think that's something that we all can get behind, this idea of balancing both the growth and development as well as the environment, and ensuring that our city government is transparent, resident-centered, and fiscally responsible. Ray's background, he graduated from Florida State University with a degree in business, as well as he's got a master's degree in city planning from the University of Pittsburgh. Ray spent his early part of his career working in his hometown of Pittsburgh, PA, serving as executive director of the Pittsburgh Urban Redevelopment Authority and as head of Pittsburgh's Technology Council, among other positions. He's brought his background in urban planning and community redevelopment to his work on the city council, which you'll hear in just a second, in some of his priorities, but as well as a background, he started in the banking field with Federal Home Loan Banks of Pittsburgh and Atlanta, as well as a private community bank with Hamilton State Bank. And he's helped it grow into one of the largest banks in Georgia. He also worked in the conservation field with the Trust for Public Land, where he headed operations for the Midwest and Southeast US, including Florida. And he also continues to serve on several national boards. And he's happily married to his wife of 40 years, Eileen, and he's got 3 adult children. So without further delay, let me pass it over to Ray. Thank you very much, Ray, for agreeing to speak with us.
Thank you, Joe, for that very nice introduction. It reminds me of one time when I was in Pittsburgh and speaking to a group of people at one of the local universities, and I was being introduced by one of the students, and the program was running late, so I said to her, you know, you can dispense with any kind of a long introduction because people here know me pretty well. And she got up there and she said, our next speaker is Ray Christman. You all know him, and the less said about him, the better. So that was one of my favorite introductions. But I want to thank Joe and Doug for inviting me here today. And can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep, good. Per my discussion with Joe, I'm going to spend about 15 minutes or so just talking about some of these issues that he thought I should touch.
Oh, we just lost you. You're muted somehow, Ray.
Okay, can you hear me again? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to talk for about 15 or 20 minutes about some of these issues that I think will be of interest to you, and then hopefully we'll have at least a few minutes for some questions if you have any. And I'm going to run through, these are the issues, and I'll use this order to talk about them. The first is the environment, which is really, in my opinion, the most important concern on an ongoing basis that Naples has. And I think we've realized in recent years how important it is, not just to our quality of life, but to our economy. And water quality is really at the center of that. There are some mega issues affecting this region around sea level rise and climate change that Naples has a role to play in trying to address, but we're going to have to do that obviously in concert with the county, state government, federal government, and other parties. But there are some things that we can do ourselves and have control over right here in Naples. And I'll just mention a couple of those major projects. Number one is the so-called Gulf Shore Beach Outfalls project, which is a project that's been kind of hanging fire for 20 years, proposed but never funded. And it's to remove these old unsightly outfall pipes that exist in the area south of the beach club, and replace those with pipes that will be larger in dimension and will go further out into the Gulf. But as part of that, it also involves replacing the infrastructure under Gulf Shore Boulevard from approximately the Beach Club south to 3rd Avenue South, installing 2 pump stations, one at the north end and one at the south end. And the replacement of the infrastructure will involve both the water lines and the wastewater lines. So the whole street will have to be torn up and reconstructed as part of this. The estimated cost of this project is $25 million. And the benefits will be a cleaner and safer beach, number one, reduced flooding in the watershed that is served by this area, which is quite an extensive watershed, and you know, just a little bit south of where, you know, most of the properties in your association are, but still very near you. And then also improve water quality in terms of the quality of water that we're gathering and putting into the Gulf of Mexico. So that's one huge project. It'll come before City Council in June for final design review, and if it passes muster, we should be able to begin construction on that project in the third or fourth quarter of this year. But this project, it'll take 2 or 3 years to fully complete it. The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of the environment and water quality is our lake system. As you all know, Naples is full of these small to mid-sized lakes. There's something like 28 of them in total. And they were originally created, going way back in Naples history, in order to play a role in wastewater management, to retain water, clean it before it gets deposited into the Gulf or into Naples Bay. And again, what we have done in the last couple of years at City Council is place more of a priority in terms of restoring and cleaning these lakes, most of whom need it badly, and to try to make sure that they're playing the environmental quality, water quality function that was envisioned for them. I've been personally involved working with a group of homeowners up in Park Shore around something called Swan Lake to try to use that as a pilot for how we can get these sorts of projects done.
Right. How about the outfalls, private outfalls north of Loudermilk Park?
Those, Hans, I don't know what the status of those are. That's not part of the beach.
But it ought to be.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to talk about that because how many outfalls are there? Do you know?
3.
3. And what's the avenue that is? What avenue is that?
There's one just north of Loudermilk Park. There's one outside of the hotel. And then there's one just outside of the moorings park.
Let me find out about that and I'll let you know. I'll get
I
back
sent
to you.
an email. There's some guy that's involved with that you had as a speaker last year.
Yeah.
You told me to send an email. I did. I never got an answer.
Okay, I'll get back to you on it.
Good.
You'll hear from me. Moving down the list on quality of life, I'll just mention a couple of issues because this is in Naples because of the some of the conflicts that occur between not just growth and development, but also tourism and visitation, which is important to the city, and just day-to-day quality of life for our residents. A couple of significant things that have been done in the last year, particularly, is the steps we took to make beach access in the beach end blocks in the area, again, from roughly the beach club south into Aqualand Shores, be reserved on most of the avenues, be reserved for beach permit sticker holders only, rather than having it be meters that could be accessed by anyone. So giving the residents priority for beach end parking has been a big step, and people seem very, very happy with it. And it's working quite well. These are people who are obviously city residents, but also county residents who have those stickers. The other, I think, most significant initiative was the legislation that we passed to ban loud leaf blowers, gasoline-powered leaf blowers. We passed that in November, and we're giving the landscape industry a year to phase that in and implement it fully. But I think that will also improve the quality of life tremendously in this town, as all of us know who have been beset at various times by these awfully loud leaf blowers. Coming up next on the agenda for City Council, I predict in terms of a quality of life issue is tackling the airport noise problem, the growing problem with aircraft. The airport, good news, airport is growing phenomenally in terms of usage. This pandemic year has actually accelerated that. And but the noise problem has gotten even worse because the growth of jet aircraft has been so substantial. And there is an FAA supported noise study going on as we speak at the airport. And I'm hopeful, and others are, that it will lead to some changes in flight paths and other things to help address that problem. In terms of redevelopment in our city or growth and development, I would mention, first of all, that the current city council has really focused on looking at the code, the land use code that governs how we develop in this city, and setting tougher standards around height limits and density, but also taking action to make it much, much harder to get variances and deviations from city council and the planning advisory board compared to what happened in the past, where they were sort of passed out like Halloween candy. So in general, we've been focusing on the code, and then we've had a couple of important projects that we've been dealing with. One, which is, I know your favorite, all of your favorites, favorite project, the Naples Beach Hotel. And you all know as well as I do what's been happening with that. It was controversial enough 2 years ago when it was originally approved with a lot of variances for additional development of the condos that were permitted. And now 2 years later, in the last month or two, the city and the community have learned that this is a project that is possibly going to look quite different than what was approved and envisioned 2 years ago on the golf course property. And maybe we can talk about that in question and answer. But that project is once again mirrored in controversy, and it's uncertain as to what's going to happen. The ball's sort of in the developer's court now to come back with a fresh proposal. The other project I'll mention, two other things I'll mention to you, because these are important for the community as a whole. One is the proposed new Gulf Shore Playhouse Theater Complex over on First Avenue South near Goodwood Frank Road. That project has been working through council, actually through the Community Redevelopment Agency, which is something that I chair on behalf of council, and is our redevelopment area is the area that particularly includes the area between 41 and Goodwood Frank Road, and from 7th Avenue North to 5th Avenue South. And so the new theater complex there, where the city is being requested to build a new parking garage to support the theater complex and other new development that would occur along with it. And action on that, I expect to come back before the CRA and council in May. And then finally, we're also right on the cusp of issuing a contract to a consultant to do a master plan for that entire CRA area that I just described. My vision is that that area along 10th Street between 41 and Goodwood Frank Road has the potential someday to be a third commercial core area for the city, along with 5th Avenue and 3rd Street. But right now, we don't really have a vision for what it might look like and how it might develop. And so with the help of a top consultant, we're going to try to do for that area what the city did back in the 1990s when they hired Andres Duaney, the famous planner, to come in and do a plan for 5th Avenue South. Maintaining fiscal stability, number 4 on the list. There's not a lot to say about that, because all the news is good. We actually were able to reduce the tax rate for residents and taxpayers in the current fiscal year from 1.18 mils to 1.15. Ironically, as we all know, a year ago when the pandemic was just starting, I think most of us thought that this could pose some tremendous challenges for Naples in terms of our economy and our fiscal and financial well-being. And ironically, just the opposite has happened. It's because Naples became perceived as a safe haven for many people to want to come to, either as visitors or even to buy property. This has been a boom year in Naples. And so when we get around to doing the next budget, working on that this summer and early fall and finalizing the budget, the city fiscal year begins on October 1st. I think we'll be in good shape in terms of budget reserves and ability to even fund some of these projects in the environmental area that we would like to fund. Number 5, implementing ethics reform. Joe mentioned my background leading the Ethics Naples effort before I came onto City Council. That was an effort, as some of you will recall, to amend the city charter through a referendum that would create an independent ethics commission for the city and a new ethics code. For a lot of reasons, that was badly needed, so we thought, in the city, and citizens overwhelmingly supported it. We then got into an extended tussle with the old city council, where they attempted to block us from implementing that legally in a court action. We won that court action, and subsequently in last year, Ethics Naples, by this time I had moved on and I was on City Council, but Ethics Naples was able to get it on the ballot in August 2020, and the voters in the city voted strongly in favor of it. And so now we have a new ethics commission in the city, 5 members. They're meeting, they're doing the work, they're putting together a new code that will come to City Council in May for our approval. And I think in terms of the integrity and transparency of local government, I think this is a very important action that's been taken and will have long-term benefits for the city. And then finally, protecting public health and safety, which really gets us especially this year into the issues around COVID and related issues. I would say this is where the one major area where I will be critical of some of my colleagues on council. I think that I know lots of people have different views on COVID and mask wear and other things, but I felt that city government, any local government, should be doing anything and everything it can to provide protection to our citizens. And last July, when the county passed a mask wear order, I thought it was, but said that the city of Naples would have to take its own action if it wanted to also be part of it. I thought it would be a no-brainer. And much to my surprise, last July, when it came before us, I was one of only 2 city council people who voted for adopting a mask wear order for the city of Naples. And it took 5 months and 2 other votes before in December, we were able to pass that mask wear order by a 4-3 vote. So we frankly wasted 5 months not having it in place. And even more sadly, now at our last regular meeting, in discussion, again, a slim majority of council, 4 against 3, I was one of the 3, voted to allow the city mask wear order to expire on April 13th, rather than renew it, which again, I think is a mistake. While we know that things are getting better rapidly in this country with the distribution of the vaccine, I think it's still premature to declare victory. And I think it would have been helpful to continue to have that order in place for at least another couple of months or so. And of course, nationally, what we read through the CDC and other reputable sources is that there's concern that we're going to have another surge here before we get to the end of this pandemic. Um, Some good news, I think, is on the distribution of the vaccine, and I want to congratulate the city staff, our emergency management team, our firemen, our policemen, who have really done an incredible job down at the firehouse distributing the vaccine over the last couple of months, and they're going to continue to do it. And if you go down there and either see that or participated, and everybody I talked to who went down there just says it's such a smooth, well-run operation, and we're putting, now I think about 700 or 800 shots in the arm every Friday, and it's very impressive and a compliment to what I think is our wonderful city staff. So those are the items I wanted to touch on and mention, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
2 questions. The first question, what's the story on the 3rd Street Hotel?
The story is that the owners applied some 6 months or so ago for a demolition permit, and it took a lot of negotiation to get the permit in the shape that we needed it to be. So it was done properly. They've now completed or nearly completed. I haven't been down there in the last week or 2 to look at it, but it's almost completely done, and it's going to be sodded, so it'll be green with a fence around it. We have heard nothing at city council or at the city staff level about any progress in terms of building the new hotel that was proposed for that site. Been total silence on that, and we're now in May. It'll be 3 years since the original entitlements were given. So we don't know what the next steps are there.
Thank you. I also want to endorse what you said about the firehouse, because I had a shot down there, and they really do a wonderful job.
Yeah, they really do. Pete DeMaria runs a great operation.
Ray, could you talk to us a little bit about where we are with previous city council? There was no move to put a structure, a legal framework in place to protect the green space represented by the golf course in perpetuity. And just kind of wondering, you said earlier, you alluded to the fact that the ball is in the developer's court to provide a fresh proposal. We saw some articles in the newspaper about how the plan has changed from being an 18-hole golf course to now it's going to be 10-hole, and in some ways it's positives, pickleball court and some other amenities, but in other ways we still are where we were before in terms of, as far as I know, there's no legal framework in place that really protects this. And that was, of course, the promise that was made the prior city council, which they conceded everything in terms of variances on development.
Yeah, exactly right, Joe. The quid pro quo, as I call it, or the deal that was struck between the city and the Athens group 2 years ago, before council voted on it, was, in my view, give us all these variances so we can build denser and taller condos, and in return, we promised the green space, the golf course will remain green in perpetuity. And then there was the issue of putting a so-called easement on that to protect it. And the problem that ensued, and I had just come on council at this point, but I had been, when I was campaigning for council, it was a major issue for me, was that we needed to have an easement that's a so-called conservation easement. That's a term of the trade, which is the strongest possible easement to have for protection. And what you want to have is the easement be held not by the city, but by a third party land trust or some other appropriate conservation group that would hold it in perpetuity. Because what we did here in Naples was created an easement that was, first of all, not a strong easement. It was a weak easement. It was not a conservation easement. But secondly, the holder of that easement is the city. So, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, imagine a situation where whoever owns that property at that time may decide, well, I don't think I want to have a golf course there anymore. I want to build more condos, or I want to build single family housing. All they have to do is go to city council. And if city council at that time is a more compliant city council who just is going to roll over for a developer, all they have to do is release that easement at a stroke of a pen, and it's gone. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. So the issue you raised continues to be the number one issue for me with respect to the property. And I think for other members of council, I have been for months working with the Athens group and others to try to encourage them to consider an appropriate easement. Council even went out and hired special counsel, a law firm based in Tallahassee that was advertised to be the most knowledgeable law firm in the state in terms of easements and conservation. We hired them. They've given us and the Athens group a report and recommendations as to how to do this. And my hope is that as the Athens group tries to figure out how to deal with all this community blowback they're getting here, one thing they'll do is come back to the community down the road in a few months and say, look, we're willing to enter into a proper easement as an expression of goodwill and trying to rebuild the trust that I think has been damaged in the last couple of months. So I hope that's a response to what you were getting at, Joe.
Do you think they'll have to come back with the fact that they've changed, in effect, what they're going to do with the golf course? Do you think that legally they had to come back and request an approval for that, or what's your?
Well, I want to separate into two parts. On the easement, they really are under no requirement to come back and adopt a stronger easement. They're not forced to. City council 2 years ago blew that opportunity, unfortunately. So if they do come back, it would be voluntarily. But where they I think would have to come back is if they are proposing to change materially the site plan that was approved back in 2019, which was for an 18-hole golf course and other things. If they want to now make that a 10-hole golf course, if they want to add all these new recreational uses that have been discussed in the newspaper, for pickleball and rock climbing walls and other things, they would have to come back and get approval from city council for that revised site plan. And so in that sense, we hopefully have some leverage over them where it could create an opportunity to try to persuade them to take a look also at changing the easement.
Ray, this is Doug Stewart. Ray, on the hotel itself and all of the work that's been done, firstly, compliments to you and the rest of the council for having opened it up for input from the community. That Thursday meeting was long. It was somewhat redundant, but at the end of the day, I think everybody came away with a feeling that you guys really cared about what was going on. That was very good. We are part, the Gulf Shore property owners are part of the coalition of homeowners associations. And as such, we, together with Coquina Sands, together with the moorings, made a presentation to your meeting on Thursday. I think that what we have here is an opportunity to kind of shape this a little bit better for the betterment of the whole community. And the golf course is just one component of it. I don't think that there's anything else that will be changed. I think it's strictly the golf course and how everything lays together. But I think you guys are on the right path, and I look forward to continued dialogue among the Athens group, together with the people who will put the easement in place and be able to move that forward. Thank you very much, Ray.
Well, thanks, Doug. And just to respond briefly to that, first of all, you're absolutely right in mentioning the coalition of HOAs of which you guys were part, and you played, going back 2 years, a really important role in working with the Athens group and to try to achieve those objectives. I think that, again, the easement and ensuring the real long-term protection of the golf course property is priority number one. I don't, what I'm about to say doesn't mean that the Athens is not meant to suggest the Athens group is evil or bad. They're a developer like any developer, and they're looking to maximize their financial return and maintain maximum flexibility. So I think that at this point, we have to find ways to have leverage over them to get them to be willing to adopt an appropriate easement. And the only one of the unexpected benefits of this community backlash against the Athens group here recently is that I think it does put pressure on them that wasn't there before to make some concessions. And hopefully one of the concessions they'll make will be with respect to the easement.
May I bring up another topic, if I could, please? This is Renee Lewin from Sancerre. Thank you for your service, Ray, and appreciate your speaking to the group. I recently participated in a survey conducted by the city of Naples for bike and pedestrian safety.
Yes.
And roadways. As an avid biker, I see a lot on the roadways. And I bike on Gulf Shore Boulevard in Creighton and Gordon Drive, et cetera. I actually sent in the survey results and took pictures for people to see, and I hope it's shared with the council, because I think that this sort of relates to the development and traffic on Gulf Shore Boulevard and safety of pedestrians and others. It seems to me that we're not enforcing speeding. We're not enforcing service vehicles like landscapers and other service providers, developers, trucks, et cetera. They're covering up the roadway. You're unable to pass. And if you do pass and you're on a bike, you're in danger because there's only one lane left. I also took pictures of the side streets, because if they don't park on Creighton or Gulf Shore Boulevard or on Gordon Drive, then they park on a side street and they put cones around their truck as if that protects them or some warning. And it just as easily, they cover up another roadway as they turn around a side street. So I hope the city council takes seriously the traffic patterns, the speeding, the size of trucks that come on the community, especially on some of those roads that I've just mentioned. You take your life in your own hand if you ride your bike on Creighton. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And you know, and sometimes pedestrians are their own worst enemy. If you ride your bike on Gulf Shore Boulevard in the bike lanes, which are very nice, a lot of people are walking and running in those lanes when sidewalks is 5 feet away.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not all service vehicles, but I will also tell you that the city needs to look at their own garbage pickup and some of the other services that you provide, because they also park in the street and block the road.
Yeah.
And where they can easily pull into a condominium and pick up their trash or whatever they're doing. I just hope the city council looks at this seriously, because Naples is a beautiful place. It's got a lot of great features where people love to walk, not just on the beach, but on the roadways. And of course, I think their safety and biker safety should be a real concern. And I think traffic enforcement needs to needs to get a hold of some of these speeders. There's no reason to go 50 and 60 miles an hour on Gordon Drive.
Yeah.
None whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the answer is. I hate to see more stoplights or stop signs or speed bumps, but it's got to slow people down. Or I think as you do this construction on the new development here on Gulf Shore Boulevard, you're inviting more traffic, and because people will be curious, they want to see what's going on, they'll be driving through.
Yeah.
And so I would hope, Councilman, that you would take what I'm saying seriously and raise it with your other council members.
Well, thank you, Renee, for articulating all that. And I've actually I've heard all those items before, but I've never actually heard anybody kind of pull them together and like you just did. And I think it was very well stated. And you know, we've got mostly pretty narrow streets in Naples, and we have increasing competition on those streets between bicyclists and cars and pedestrians, and now, and as you say, landscape trucks, construction trucks. It's my wife and I walk and bike regularly around town as well. We live in Old Naples, but you know, it just, especially this year and this season, it is getting worse and worse. And I think the bike ped master plan is an opportunity for us to get these issues on the table and talk about them. You know, just a couple other comments I'll just make in response. First of all, we have a culture in Naples that's longstanding of we're very nice here. We're very nice, and city staff prides itself on being very nice, and that even extends to the police. The police don't like to issue tickets. It's, you know, that's not what we're about. We don't, you know, and so in some areas, and you know, the speeding problem, my wife and I have observed it here. We live on 6th Street near the hospital, and it's the speeding up has gotten worse and worse, just as one example. And so we probably need to have some cultural change with our police force in terms of enforcement, for sure. And some of the answer too is in, you know, reaching some, in some cases, maybe we are going to need to widen the streets to provide for new bike lanes. And that means getting into the public right of way that is in front of people's houses, that is public property, but where people over the years have assumed that it's really their property, and they've often landscaped and planted it with their own money. And it becomes a very difficult and controversial issue when you start trying to pick up a few feet of land in the public right of way to provide for some of these other benefits. So those are just a couple of comments I make that doesn't in any way, Renee, deflect from your broader point, but it's just an example of some of the challenges we have to try to get our hands around this.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Hello,
Yes.
this is George Van Setter from the Whitehall. I just want to ask one more question about the golf course and the construction, rather. When does the Athens Group plan to start the construction, physically start whatever they're going to do? I guess start tearing something down.
What they said the other day, when we had the public meeting, what they said was that they were still planning the sale of the property from the Watkins family to the Athens Group has still not actually occurred. The closing is scheduled to occur in May of this year, and they said that that was still assumed to occur in May, and they would begin demolition this summer in July of the hotel. And the I think what they said was that the new construction would not begin until probably late 2022 or something like that.
Is there any way the city council can insist that you have a site plan satisfactory to the city council before you allow them to start the construction?
Well, the odd thing is that we do have a site plan that was approved by city council back in 2019. Now that site plan provides for an 18-hole golf course, and it has a number of things that are quite different than what had kind of leaked out it was leaked out by the Athens group in these recent community meetings that they were holding, where they started to talk about other things. But they have never come to the city council and said and requested approval for those other things. So the site plan that's in place is still something quite different. And so that's what makes this thing interesting right now in terms of what the next steps are. The Athens group has no obligation to come back to city council at this point for really anything of significance. But in my opinion, anyway, if they never did come back to city council, they would not be able to implement the plan as they have described it to the community in recent months. And of course, the motivation they had for doing this was that recognizing what a hot real estate market Naples had become even more so in the last year, they became very anxious to begin selling those condos and getting contracts for pre-sales and so on. So they put together quickly material that laid out this new vision for what the overall property would look like in the hopes of enticing more buyers more quickly. And that's what, once the community read those marketing and sales brochures and said, what's this? This isn't what we were promised 2 years ago. That's what has led to the recent upheaval.
Isn't the fact that the new vision that it was never approved by the city council, isn't that leverage for the council?
Well, I think it is. I think, if they do want to pursue that or something like it, and they know they have to come back for approval on that, I think it does give us leverage on issues like what we were talking about a little bit ago with the easement and trying to persuade them that they should voluntarily agree to this new and stronger and more appropriate easement structure.
Thank you.
Ray Al Hilditch here.
Hey, Al.
Hi, I'd like to segue into Renee's comments. We used to have a best practice ordinance as well as a license certificate for landscape contractors in the city of Naples, which was coordinated through the county. I found out that that is not the case, and we've most recently found several contractors working on Gulf Shore Boulevard that are not licensed. We also used to have stickers on the truck that used to be held out, and we're actually finding out that some of these gentlemen driving these landscaping trucks don't have a driver's license. And then when we ask for their business license and their liability insurance and workman's comp, they don't have any of that paperwork either. So obviously that causes parking confusion for pedestrians, bikers, etc. And you talked about the enforcement side of things here. I don't want to be a Nazi either, but there should be a firm protocol in place, I think, and you should maybe raise the question. Now, I spoke to another city council person about this last week, so it may be working its way through the city.
Yeah, and you're getting at another hot button for me, Al, which is code enforcement.
Correct.
And we have two different code enforcement shops at the city. One is in the building department, which handles code as it relates to building sites and whether residential or commercial. And then we have another code enforcement office that is there to enforce code as it relates to, things like outdoor dining, restaurants, signage, a whole bunch of almost anything else, short-term rentals. And in my opinion, both of those code enforcement areas are historically, again, been part of this, Naples is so nice culture that has not really focused on, properly penalizing people when they are absolutely flagrant in their violations. And our code enforcement board, which hears appeals, has also tended to be, in my opinion, rather passive and overly generous. So, you wish you didn't have to deal with this sort of stuff, but I think as the development pressures on Naples continue to increase, we're going to have to make those adjustments in code enforcement as well. So thanks for mentioning that.
Questions for Ray?
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any other questions for Ray? Anybody? This is your chance. So it sounds like there's quite a few things that we raised, which I think is good with regard to concerns about both the Athens Group development, but also as with regard to, I think that point about best practice and license ordinance, and the fact that we may not have anything in place that requires that these cars now have, that the landscapers have stickers on their trucks. That sounds like something pretty important, as well as, I don't know, I can't remember whether that survey is still open regarding the biking and the bike master plan, but if it is, I encourage those of you that haven't completed the survey to complete it. And certainly, I think we can all get behind Renee's sentiments with regard to the idea that some of the traffic laws need to be enforced better. And with regard to some of the things that are going on with the landscapers, we need to look at that as well. So thank you. Anybody else have any other comments for Ray before we?
Ray, I had sent an email to Charles Chapman and asked him whether Robin Singer and Roger Reinke resigned or what happened to them. All of a sudden they're not there. Can you tell me what happened?
Yeah, well, Roger left way back in, when did he left summer of 20, I mean, he's been gone for over a year and a half.
Well, he was still there when Bill Moss was retired.
Well, I guess I take that back. Roger actually left last summer. It was summer of 2020, and he left of his own volition. He said, I talked to him personally, and he said, it's time for me to retire. I've been doing this for a long time, and he spent nearly 40 years working in local government in Wisconsin and Milwaukee, and then Marco Island and Naples, and was just he'd had enough. And I think the pandemic had started by that, or it had started by that time, and I think that had something to do with it also. And Robin retired and left in just a couple of months ago, but since then, the decision was just announced the other day by Charles Chapman that her number 2, Erica Martin, was going to become the new permanent planning director. So, I think that was, again, kind of a normal transition where Robin, who'd been there a long time herself, left, and Erica, who's very capable, number 2, moved up and into that job.
Thank you.
Just a comment on Erica. I was very impressed with her on Thursday's meeting. I think she did a very good job of presenting documents to the council and responding to questions. She was very much on top of her game.
Yes, I agree. I think she's very knowledgeable, and I think she also particularly did a good job that night. I agree with you. And that was a tough audience to perform in.
Ray, Ron Reinke was very active in negotiating with the unions, public, police, firemen, and also the pension plans.
Yeah.
Is his replacement as knowledgeable?
I'd say he's knowledgeable. His replacement, Dana Souza, who's been with the city and was the head of the, what we call community services, the Parks Department for a number of years. But Dana's another guy who's worked for a lot of communities around the country and is very, has had a lot of jobs. He's had experience doing that. I don't think as much experience as Roger on the negotiation with the unions, but probably there are a few people who have that much experience. So, Roger and Charles are handling that together now.
Is that potentially a problem?
I don't think so. I mean, I think these union negotiations are always very tough, but I don't think we have a problem with, we also have outside counsel that works with us on this. So I think.
What's the status of the city attorney's situation?
Well, yesterday we had a long meeting. It was a mere 11 hours. And we interviewed finalists for the city attorney and we selected a new city attorney.
So Jim Fox is out?
The Retzel firm will be transitioning with the new city attorney over the next period of weeks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Those were great, Hans. Really good detailed questions. Okay, so as we wrap up this part of the meeting with Ray, we just want to be sure to thank Ray. Thank you so much for your time, for your service. Thanks to listening to everybody's questions and responding. And most important, thanks for speaking with us and really filling us in on everything that you're working on, as well as what the city council's working on, and giving us updates on so many different matters. So again, thank you very much, Ray.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, Doug and Joe and everybody, thank you. This is a great opportunity for me and to connect with one of the number of ways so I appreciate that opportunity. And you great questions, and I've made some notes in several of these areas, like what Renee brought up and what Al brought up. I'm going to follow up with staff and try to understand what we're doing or what we might be doing. And a couple other areas, I'll get back to some of you, like Hans on the beach outfall pipes north of the beach hotel. So thank you for the time, and I'll sign off now and let you continue with your meeting if that's okay.
That's fantastic, Ray. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Ray. Great job.
Thank you.
So we just had 2 or 3 other topics, and then we'll wrap up today's call. And I want to thank everybody that's on the call right now. Doug, you want to take away this topic on collaboration? You're muted, Doug. Unmute yourself, Doug.
Sorry, I'm back. All right, number one, guys, we've been talking about collaboration ever since you guys elected me president. This is a board that needs to be listening to you, and we need to be responding to you, the buildings along Gulf Shore Boulevard, the condominiums and the cooperatives. Each of us have little things that we need to know that the other person may already know. And it saves us a lot of time being able to collaborate and et cetera. And we want to move forward with that. We want to move forward with your input. We have a website, and the website, which is shown on the slide there, is up, and it's a good website, but it could be a whole lot better. It could be a whole lot better by getting input from you in terms of the kinds of things that you want on that website. We floated ideas, everything from exchanging contractors' information to we did the COVID questionnaire earlier this year, and we completed that and got back to you on that. But there's so much more we can be doing and exchanging information. We can have a chat board. We can give information on that. We can have a topic of the month. We've talked about that. We can have a single topic that we want to discuss that month. Do we want to put up rentals and units for sale? We can put that on the site. So these are all possibilities. On the slide, it talks about dues, insurance, contractors, favorite restaurants. Where do you like to go? Where would you recommend I go? And whatever subjects might be of interest to your condo and cooperative. I think that this is really a thing that we can move together on and make better. And as we make it better, I think it's only with your input. So think about it and feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Joe or any of the board members. The board members, which will be elected in just a few minutes, we'll get to that in a second. But all of us are here for you, and I'll circulate our names and our email addresses and our phone numbers, so you will have that. That's all I have on this slide, Joe. You want to go to the next one?
Sure. So does anybody have any comments on this though, with regard to topics that you think you'd like to, if we did this idea of engaging on a monthly topic each month, and we just asked everybody, go ahead and put your input on the website with regard to, you know, what are your HOA or your condo dues? And, you know, maybe we would survey it as well, but just to get a feel for a benchmark. Obviously, everybody's got different amenities and there's lots of variables that go into what you pay for your dues, but, you know, the idea of creating a benchmark might be helpful to get a sense as to, are my dues high or low? Again, is that of interest? Would you like to talk about what's a great restaurant to go to?
Yeah, well, in Kingsport, I'm in the Kingsport Club at 2150. At Kingsport, we have a set of requirements in our building where we have our own manager. But a lot of you guys use association management firms out there in the community. That's something that you may want to talk about. You may want to find out what the other guy is doing. You may want to exchange information on that in terms of how much is it costing you? Are you getting the quality of dialogue back from your management association? So, you know, again, these are things that we can open up for discussion. We can have separate meetings on that, which actually will bring me to another matter. And Joe, if you don't mind, I'll stay on the subject here. We have infrequent meetings, and the meetings can be more frequent depending upon what you, the members, require. So if you got something you want to talk about, let us know, and maybe we'll have a special meeting for that.
Doug, I just want to mention, you got to be careful what you say. You know, if you say something bad about a management company, the management company may come back to you, and not in the way you want. So,
Hans, I appreciate what you're saying, but I think that what you're saying here is that we don't want to have a negative impact upon anyone. We don't want to do that. We don't want to negatively talk about a restaurant. We don't want to negatively talk about a contractor, but we do want to talk about positive aspects. And if we got a really good firm out there, or if we got a really good contractor out there, or a really good restaurant, that's what we want to talk about, is the positives. Accentuate the positives.
I agree.
So thank you. Okay. Next slide. Okay, guys. Any comments from you? We heard from Hans just a moment ago.
Okay. So real quickly, just from a financial perspective, maybe you're unaware of what the annual dues are per condo or co-op for your building, not individually. It's $150. We've been pretty frugal with regard to the expenses. The primary expenses are the financial bookkeeper and the website. So, you know, we're not spending a lot of money and we're trying to be frugal. With the pandemic, we've done fine. Obviously, we're always chasing down dues. And so that's a challenge. And that's why we've got the bookkeeper that helps us with that. But that's kind of where we stand. We're in good shape financially. And let's move to the election and wrap it up.
Okay, well.
I'd like to make, Doug, some years ago, quite a few years ago, as a matter of fact, the council visited the stormwater dues. And they decided that in condos, if you have 40 people in a condo, each one would pay as much as one of those very large buildings on Gulf Shore Boulevard. In other words, they said, you know, per owner was going to be the charge for stormwater. And because the condo owners all objected. Doug Finley was a big objector. I don't know exactly where that stands today, but with this new council, it may be worth taking up again. Al, do you have any comment on that?
You're asking me, I don't know, I do not have any comment on that. I know what you're talking about, and I know about the fees. I think that's something that we should definitely bring up with the appropriate people within the city to make sure that we're not overpaying for what we are actually using.
Well, we certainly were, that's the point.
I'm sorry, Hans, repeat.
I'm sorry?
Would you repeat what you just said? I didn't hear you.
I said it certainly wasn't the case that we were overpaying, because to say that, for example, a building like ours, where there are 36 owners, should pay 36 times as much as one of those huge homes on Gulf Shore Boulevard is ridiculous.
Yep, agreed. All right, election of officers. On the slate today, we have Hans, who you've just heard from. We have Duncan Cameron. Duncan has been on our board for about 5 or 7 years, I think. We have Joe Basili, who's been on our board for about 3 years. Joe is our treasurer, and Joe was facilitating all of the communication, the website, everything else. Joe is my go-to guy on that. Maxine Lewis is our secretary. We have lost Beth Emhoff. Beth was our communicator on environmental, and we will miss her. She's moved back to Oregon, so she's gone, and we will send along our thanks to her after this meeting. And then our newest board member is Terry Copeland. Terry is joining us. He's not on the call right now. He had a prior commitment, so he could not join us today, but he's going to be an active member of the board. He has a good background. We've vetted him, and he sounds like he's the kind of person we can really use on the board. We're looking for a couple of more members. So if you guys are interested in joining the board or joining a committee, please join in. So with that, let's have an election of the board and you can unmute yourself and tell us whether or not you accept this board, and then we'll have an election among the board members for who will be president, who will be vice president, et cetera, next year. So I am going to ask you to unmute yourself and give me a voice vote to accept the board as stated, slate as stated.
I just want to make one point. You know, we had a discussion and you agreed that we should have an odd number of directors if we could possibly. So therefore, to ask for 2 more, it's not a good idea. I think for asking 1 more, yes. But 2 more, I think, will make it just even again, which is not what we want.
I wish I knew what you said, Hans.
He was talking about the odd number.
Yes.
Doug, the idea that it'd be helpful to have an odd number. The good news is we haven't had anything too contentious where the board's been split 50-50. So I think short term we're okay, but it's a fair point. And I know Doug's been working to try to recruit people, and he got Terry to agree, which moved us from an odd number to back to an even number. But, you know.
What Doug just said, that we were looking for 1 or 2 more. I don't think we're looking for 2. I think we're maybe looking for 1.
Yeah, or 3.
Okay, Hans. Okay, I respect what you're saying. I thank you very much. I think what we need to do here is to move on. I need a second on the slate. May I have a second from one of the members?
I'll second it, Al Hilditch.
Thank you, Al. Okay, moving to a vote. All in favor of the slate?
Doug, after that, you have to have discussion. You can't have a vote until you've had discussion. And I just discussed. So please keep that in mind.
I'm really not sure where to go with you, Hans. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm saying, the proper procedure in a vote is you ask for a motion, you ask for a second, and then you have a discussion. And after you've had a discussion, you can vote, but you do not jump from a second to a vote without discussion. That's Robert's rules.
Does anybody want to, I'm not sure where to go with this, Hans. I'm sorry. I'd like to remove you from the board if you wouldn't mind, and then we can have an odd number.
Well, if you
How
want to do
about
that, fine, go ahead.
All right, now discussion about removing Hans from the board.
That's a second, that's another motion. Let's just stay focused on, I think we should just have the discussion. I think we kind of, you're right, on Robert's Rules of Order said you should have the discussion after the motion. Although I think we had the discussion before the motion, so. But if we want to discuss having an odd number, let's discuss that real quickly. Anybody want to chime in on that? Okay, it sounds like we've had the discussion. So let's just vote. Do we need to do individual vote, or can we just do a all for and all against?
All in favor? Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Well,
All
what did we
opposed?
vote for?
Aye.
Was that a vote for the whole board?
For the current slate.
Okay,
All opposed?
Hearing no
Okay.
opposed, the board
Let
carries.
the
We're all set.
record show that we've got 13 participants, and it was unanimously passed that the current board will continue to serve.
Okay.
The board is, there is an odd number because the president doesn't vote on most amendments or problems. So you have 5 without the president.
Oh, but that's the whole point. The vaccine, you have the president who is a member of the board. And when he does not vote, you can have an even number on both sides, and then he votes. So, you know, he is a member of the board.
Yeah, so in theory, the president typically votes as the
Tiebreaker.
yeah.
Exactly.
I think we're okay for now. Like I said, we haven't had a lot of contentious issues where we've had to sway people. So with that, do we have any new business? Okay, if not, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you for being on the call.
Joe, how about a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Fair point. We need a motion to adjourn. Absolutely, Hans, you're right.
And Joe, you can make that motion.
Make a
I-
motion, so move.
Okay.
Thank you,
Seconded.
everyone. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Maxine.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to ask the board to stay on the line so we can do the election of officers, please. Other members, other people on the call are welcome to stay, but this is just for the board to vote on their directors, on the chairs. Okay,
I'd like to make a motion that we just keep everybody in the same position they're in now.
okay.
We got a second, Duncan, you raised your. Okay, we got a second. Any discussion on that?
Okay, I'm going to ask Terry Copeland to take on environmental, which was Beth So's position. And I'm sure he'll be an active player on the board. Duncan, you were doing government affairs before. Are you still okay with that?
Duncan, you're muted.
Duncan?
Yes, am I,
You're
Yeah, you're unmuted now. Oh, no, you're muted again.
huh? There we
Unmute
go.
yourself.
How,
Good, stay there. Government
Okay.
affairs, are you okay with government affairs again?
yes, yes.
Okay. All right, Joe, you're our go-to treasurer. I would like to ask you if you would like to consider being vice president of the board as well as treasurer.
I think I'm happy where I am.
You happy where you are?
Joe, there was no treasurer's report.
I did a quick treasurer's report. I just basically, I had a slide where I talked about, I didn't go into detail on the finances, but I did indicate that we're
Solvent.
what the dues are, but yeah, we're solvent. So
But how many members do we have?
that's a good question, and I have to get you an update on how many members we have, as well as what the exact funds are that we've got in there. So
I think that should be in the annual report.
it absolutely should. Typically, we would have had our bookkeeper on the call, and unfortunately, she had an operation. And so I should have gotten that update information before the call, and I didn't, so I apologize.
I mean, as far as
So
I
we'll
know,
insert it after the fact.
Joe, as far as I know, the members we don't have are Parador, Ocean Terrace, Harbor Club, and Charleston Square. Those are the four. We used to have Charleston Square and the Harbor Club, but as Duncan knows, we dropped out of the Harbor Club for some reason.
Right, so we're down 4 members.
So we used to have 38, so now we have 34. And I think we could make some effort to get Parador back. Because the person that originally said that they didn't want to be a member is no longer president.
Okay.
All right, motion to adjourn this election directors meeting.
We've already adjourned.
We've already adjourned? Okay, thank you.
Okay, everybody.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Joe.
Bye,
Maxine,
Joe.
thanks.
Bye, Doug.
Pardon?
Bye, Hans and Maxine.
Thank
I
you.
don't know. Can you all hear me?
Thanks, guys.
We can
Yes.
hear you now. Let's
Thank
hope
you.
the next
The
time that we
members
meet,
who
we can meet
attended-
physically and we're no longer worried about COVID. Let's hope we're putting that behind us.
I had both of my shots.
Yeah.
Still waiting for a second.